Oh.
Welcome to Sushi Bites. I've been driving through the PS Vita's library of weird and wonderful Japanese games for 3 episodes in a row, and it's been brought to my attention that I've been favouring rhythm games. Of course I've been favouring rhythm games. They're easy to play. You can generally play enough of them relatively quickly to write a script. And besides Go Shichi Go, there's usually not a crazy language barrier to deal with. But I get what you're putting down, so here's a game that isn't a rhythm game. Okay, it is on PS Vita, but it's not a rhythm game. Baby steps, you know? This is a game so full of itself, it claims to have a unique genre. A Maidenic Hybrid Action Game. I can make stuff up too. Sushi Bites episodes are presented in BGmjuk review format. Drive Girls released on PlayStation Vita on January 26th, 2017 in Japan. The asking price was an outrageous 6,800 yen, around $66 today. Certainly not worth that. By the end of 2017, it had also been translated and released in Europe and North America, at a budget price of around half of its initial cost. It's honestly quite shocking that any publisher would go to the effort of translating Drive Girls, but at least they had the decency to sell the game at a price more befitting its quality. There's conflicting information online. Some sources say the game was developed by Tamsoft. Others say Bergsala Lightweight with help from Tamsoft. If Tamsoft really were the ghost developers of this title, I honestly expected far better from them. Bullet Girls was developed by Tamsoft, One-chan-bara was developed by Tamsoft, and once again, as they always do, Tamsoft really knocked this out of the park. And if they had any self-respect, they wouldn't have plastered their name all over this. Drive Girls was released relatively late as far as the PS Vita is concerned. The Vita was already on its deathbed in 2017, so who exactly was this game meant for? It can't have done that well, right? What the heck is Drive Girls? Well, in-game dialogue box, I'll do my best to describe it for you. It's a hack-and-slash Muso-like. This means the game possesses the traits found in Koei Tecmo's long-running Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors series of games. But the game's female lead characters can also turn into cars, slaughter waves of generic-looking bad guys, and race around bland, featureless stages. A game with such a fantastic premise should turn out a masterpiece, but unfortunately this is quite the shit show. This is no Initial D Dynasty Warriors. The game's story is as flimsy as a scarecrow in a hurricane. Really, really flimsy. I often see the criticism of the game's story battered aside with, "Obviously it's not about the story. The girls transform into cars for crying out loud. Think it's meant to be serious?" A serious game? No, of course not. But it might be a good idea to give the player a reason to be beating up the same 3 enemies until they puke from sheer boredom. Our main character, Lancia, is on her way to the Emergency Response Team exam because she wishes to join the Emergency Response Team, whatever that is. One thing leads to another and she ends up missing her exam, but is given one last chance. What she doesn't know is that she is actually taking part in an exam to join the legendary Drive Girls, Defenders of Peace or some shit. Then a whole bunch of nothing happens. Lancia tries to resign, decides to stay and befriends the other girls, and then their leader goes missing. In between each lengthy, mind-numbingly dull cutscene, which may or may not have some tame fan service, is either a race against a tortoise AI or a fight against a whole bunch of overpowered basic enemies called bugs. It's all so bland. Drive girls, more like drivel girls. The novelty of transforming into a car is pretty fun at first, but it soon wears off. Sure, spinning your car into waves of enemies is certainly appealing to begin with, but once you figure out it's far less effective than swinging a weapon around, you'll end up using it less. You'll still need to go into the car form regularly. To power up your attacks, you have to use speed boosts in the car, so you'll always be bounding around hitting walls because the game plays like shit just to get your attack stats up. And the races are, wow, where do I start? You pace around a mostly empty level, using speed boosts and ramming into a couple of enemies on each lap. You do this over and over until the race is done. In these races you'll hear nothing but the loud of the engine. So dull. The game's presentation is horrendous too. I've seen better art in hentai puzzle games on Steam, and it's not just the quality of the art, look at these shitty characters too. Every generic trope and trait accounted for. From the washboard cat girl lolly to the samurai lady with full-on garb. I look at these characters and I think they should belong in Deep Space Waifu, not samurai warriors. The in-game graphics are much better when you're cruising around just wrecking the opposition. But the generic-ass enemies don't belong in this game at all. They are in complete juxtaposition to the visual style of the game as a whole. But hey, at least it looks somewhat okay. Performance is decent too. There are slowdowns when there are too many enemies or effects on screen, but the game stays mostly consistent. Game behavior must still be running at 60, even when the frames can't catch up, and I'm fine with that. It is the Vita. Drive Girls feels like it was never balanced for single player. Enemies do ridiculous damage, and healing items are a pain to use mid-battle. The upgrades are goddamn useless, and the lack of a retry button means getting kicked back to the mission menu every time you fail. Missions have randomized drops of varying quality, so you'll need to beat each mission over and over until the right things drop. Fortunately, you can grind. Excess gear can be sold, and the credits you earn can be spent on upgrades that, while offering only a marginal improvement, is still better than struggling without. The game comes with a full online and offline co-op mode. Drive Girls multiplayer has more enemy types and bosses to fight than the standard story mode, which makes no f***ing sense. It's apparent that the story is like a practice mode to level up in before taking on the multiplayer. The online is unsurprisingly dead nowadays, and with trophies attached to this mode, you'd have to start fussing around on forums hoping to find someone willing to help you out with getting them. Thankfully, you can enter ad hoc multiplayer and still play the mission solo for some strange reason. It's a lot harder because the balance is absolutely out of whack, but it's allegedly doable if you're maxed out. You'll want to grind these missions long before you max out, because they're a far better way of farming stickers and getting credits to spend on upgrades. Look, Drive Girls isn't the worst game I've played on PlayStation Vita, though it can certainly feel like it at times. What with getting stun-locked to high hell and beaten up in seconds, even after leveling my character up. The same map with a slightly different enemy loadout, mines everywhere that discourage you from driving in a game with drive in its title. There's a lot to hate, and very little to love. Drive Girls is honestly one game with a hugely squandered premise, alongside its boring story, uninteresting characters, and basic gameplay. Depending on its price, I might still recommend picking the game up. Critic scores on average are low, but user scores on average are high. Maybe it just didn't click with me, because I expected more from Tamsoft, or because I play video games with an analytical eye. Maybe it was hard for me to turn off the analysis mindset and just enjoy the unceasing destruction. Drive Girls might be worth a spin. I honestly can't vouch for what you might think. If it looks like a good time, maybe give it a shot anyway. This has been Sushi Bites. Thanks for watching. And that's where we would normally end things, but I decided to record a little bit of off the cuff on the end for this episode because I'm a glutton for punishment and I needed to do my due diligence and make sure the game was going to end the way I expected it would, so I carried on playing. Just a couple of clarifications and opinions now that I've got the whole game beaten and how it relates to the episode. So, earlier on in the episode I said you have to be in car form to gain overdrive. You don't have to. You can actually just hold circle and gain it while you're fighting. So, that's an improvement, I guess. I noticed pretty late into playing how powerful the comms are, which are the weapons that you unlock throughout the game. I guess I was playing a self-imposed hard mode, because I didn't know really that they existed, and once I figured out what I was doing wrong, those were pretty effective in taking out some of the major end bosses. The game still locks a lot of them behind multiplayer, so you still have to grind multiplayer to get the best guns to help you beat story mode better, but it's doable. It's doable. The game ends and then it continues. The credits roll and then there's another whole bunch of episodes afterwards which are just the same old shit again, repeated. The final level is you've got to fight all four of the main... Oh yeah, near the end of the game, they substitute real bosses for just resized versions of the character models. They look really bad. And you keep having to fight those over and over again at the end of the game, and then in post-game, the last mission is fighting all four of them back to back. Oh my god, that was infuriating. You beat the game and you think, okay, I will unlock the commander when I beat the game. No, you have to keep beating the missions after the game to unlock the commander. And even leveled up, she is weak as shit compared to the other characters. So you spend all that time unlocking a character that's rubbish. The feeling I get from this game is it was ghost developed by Tamsoft. The game was requested by Bergsala Lightweight. That's the impression I get, because it says copyright Bergsala Lightweight, and their logo's on it, but the gameplay and game mechanics and setup is so noticeably Tamsoft that I think this was just a project that they got paid to make. So yeah, it generally feels like shovelware because I think it was shovelware that Tamsoft were paid to make. That's my theory. I think it's fine. I probably will return to it to get the rest of the trophies, but I can imagine it being very infuriating. So I'm going to put this game on the shelf for now, and next Sushi Bites, something a hell of a lot more enjoyable, please. This has been Sushi Bites. Thanks for watching.